What's up, YouTube? Take 2 of this video. We'll see if there's a take 3. I guess if you only hear take 2, there's only 2 takes. Hope everyone is doing well on this Tuesday that I thought was Wednesday, but I'm glad that it's Tuesday. So today's video is going to be on 40 millimeter lenses. Sony 40 millimeter, Nikon 40 millimeter, and a Fuji 27 2.8. I think equivalent 40 millimeter. So what do I want to cover? Someone in one of the comments had asked me, hey, do you mind giving me a little bit more information about that Nikon Z40? Why do you like it? What's so great about it? Where is it weak? Did have someone ask me to remove this hat today, but my Rams are my Rams. So anyway, where do we start? Let's do this. Let's start with the smallest, the Fuji. This is the Fuji 27 2.8 OG. There's no aperture ring. When you go to buy a 27 millimeter lens from Fuji, you should never consider this lens. You should only buy lenses that have aperture rings. I mean, you're either cool or you're not. This doesn't have an aperture ring. This isn't cool. You have to turn the front dial to change the aperture using this lens. I love this lens. The dial is cool, but I really love this lens. They're the same lens other than the weather resistance and the aperture ring. Second lens. This is the Nikon Z, if I can find that for you, 40 f2. I've renamed it to the Nikon Z 40 3.2 because anything below that is just not that great, even though I still do love this lens. This is the regular version. And this is the SE version. So there's the bottom, the front. I do have a lens filter on this. I don't know if you can see this, looking for some contrast. I think it looks great. I mean, I didn't like it at first. I was like, oh, it's forced. It's so forced, it's plasticky, it's forced. It looks good, it looks good. So what we're talking about today is one lens that I don't have, also is the Sony 40 2.5. I've had it 2 or 3 times, but I don't have Sony right now, so I don't have that lens. If I owned a Sony system, I would own the Sony 40 millimeter 2.5. I love it. In fact, leading in, I recently almost purchased an adapter so that I could buy the Sony 2.5 for my Nikon ZF. I watched a video and I was like, oh, these things look amazing. The 2.5 Sony would look so cool on this, and it would. But before I went and bought it, I said, you know what, let me just dig into some numbers and let's see if it's worth paying double and having to use an adapter for that lens. So here's what I'll do. At the end of this video, I'll give you the information that I use when it comes to lens test, especially in regards to resolution. So there's a website called lenstip.com, lenstip.com. And they do reviews on most lenses. There's some that they don't have, but they do have reviews on the Fuji 27, the Sony 40 2.5, and the Nikon Z40. So if you want, you can go out and find their reviews on those lenses, and you can say, which one do I love based on what I have, maybe, or what I'm thinking of going to. Maybe I'm leaving Nikon and going to Sony. So we're focused on those 3 lenses, Fuji 27, Sony 40 2.5, and the Nikon Z 3.2. I'm not gonna stop. I know it's an f2 lens. So what I'll do, I don't know if I said this, but I will put those resolution charts at the end of this video. So you can pause it on the Sony, pause it on the Nikon or the Fuji, and you can see kind of where the numbers lie. And there's some interesting information. I think everyone should take some time. If you are shooting certain lenses, you should understand, where is my lens strong, where is it weak? And those charts will absolutely help you. I know a lot of companies or a lot of sites do the resolution testing with that MTF number. I'm not an MTF expert. 3285 compared to 5199, I don't know where the cap is. I don't know what decency is. Is decency 2300? And I'm sure there's people that know, but LensTip makes it easy, so that's why I recommend them. So let's do some quick comparisons between these lenses. So we'll start with the ones I have on hand here. the Z40 f2 for technicalities, and the Fuji 27 2.8. So if we were to shoot both of these lenses, now these numbers that I'm going to give you are for the center of the image only. The center of the image, not the edges, and I'll talk about the edges later. But if we shot both of these at 2.8, the score, the lens tip resolution score for the Fuji at 2.8 is a 65. So to give you some, a baseline to work with, I think decent is in the 40 to 50 range. If you're around high 40s, 50, that's your decent images. Once you start getting to 80, you're in exceptional. So 2.8 Fuji, right out of the gate, is a 65. It's respectable. The Nikon at 2.8, I'm not even gonna do 4. It's in the chart, you'll see it. It's like off the cliff. So the Nikon 40 at 2.8 is a 51. It's not great. Again, I've gone back. This lens, if you're thinking portraits, if you're thinking macro, if you're thinking I gotta get in there wide open, it's not your lens. It just isn't. But every lens is different and every lens serves different purposes. This is not a wide open lens. It is what it is. It's, sub $400 lens, sub $300 lens. So let's go to f4. Let's see what happens. And we'll cover the Sony later. But now we're at f4. At f4, the Nikon Z lens has gone up to 70. We're at excellent, like excellent. That's a great score. So center of the image, Z40, whether it be this one or this one, has a lens tip resolution score of 70. I mean, that's great. F4, the Z40 is kicking into its groove. What does the Fuji do? The Fuji is effectively a 70, 69. So now at f4, just talking resolution at the center of the image, these are very equal when it comes to sharpness. So at 5.6, the Fuji remains constant at 69. It's hit its gear, right? It's rocking and rolling at 69, a very, very good center of the image, sharpness, resolution score. 75, we see what's happening here. At f4, it was at 70. At f5.6, it's at 75. Now we're gonna go to a range place I don't shoot, f8. At f8, the Fuji is now at 62. It is now down the other side of that sharpness or sharpness scale, center of the image. And the Nikon is also falling off. It's at a 66, pretty close to 70. We're still hanging in at f8. I don't even shoot at f8. So, sidebar, it's worth the time to take the lenses that you shoot and understand where they are sharp and where they are not. When I first started shooting, I got the advice, throw it in f8, go have fun. Had I continued to follow that advice for all of my photography, hobby, career, whatever, I would not be shooting at the optimal resolution of my lenses. If you look at the charts of the ones that I provide at the end of this video, what you'll notice when it comes to lenses is they peak in sharpness a little earlier than f8. In fact, I think that the 40 peaks at 5.6, and then I think it hangs on to around 5.7. I don't shoot it above 5.7. f7. I don't shoot it above f7. I'm usually in the 4 to 7 range with the Nikon. With the Fuji, I'm same thing. I mean, I lived at 7.1 on this thing, 5.6, 7.1. That's where I shoot them. Again, the Fuji is fine, down to 2.8, it does great. Let's go to the Sony, and we'll compare the Sony to these two lenses. The Sony is kind of the flip of these two lenses, especially the Nikon. If you value shooting wide open, the Sony's a better lens. At f2.8, the Sony scores a 70. We're already at very, very good, excellent. At f4, the Sony shoots a 77. It's kicking ass early. At f4, the Nikon is at 70, and the Fuji's effectively a 70 as well. So they're behind that Sony early on, right? The Sony at 5.6 now is down to 70, and then at f8 it comes down to 6.2. So the Sony actually shines where the Nikon is weak. So it's really, if you were to just take these cameras out and shoot them and compare them, I mean, there's no such thing as an apples to apples comparison. I've already gotten comments here that, oh, you can't compare a full frame, CF to a crop sensor XT5. I can compare whatever the hell I want to compare, because people don't use apples and apples. People use apples and oranges and pears and raspberries, and you can compare them. Damn it. So, the Fuji's a great lens, super small. The Sony, early on, amazing lens, but let's be honest, 62 is a great score, So, again, let's just talk about this 40 from Nikon for a minute. And what you see is a lens that says, I'm not trying to be a portrait lens. I'm not trying to be a macro lens. What I am trying to be is an excellent f4 to f7 lens. Where do we shoot? When I go out and take pictures of the ocean, the bluffs, travel, family and groups, I don't shoot wide open with family because my oldest son's nose is in focus and my youngest is out of focus. He doesn't appreciate that. He wants to be in focus too. So we shoot like f4 or maybe even higher, especially group photos. If anyone remembers the Nikon 35 1.8, it was a DX lens. I think it was a DX lens. That thing lived on my D40, it lived on my D7000, it lived on my D7100. The Nikon DX 35mm 1.8 was an amazing lens, and it was $200. Was it perfect? Absolutely not. Did it probably have chromatic aberrations and all kind of crazy stuff? Yes. But I have pictures on my wall, not there, downstairs, from the Nikon 35 1.8 that are as good or better than images taken with lenses that were 10 times the cost. We paid professional photographers, and I go back and I look at my image or images with some of their images, and I feel like I should not have paid what I paid for those photos. Very happy. This is that lens. This is Nikon's 35 1.8 on the Z system. I mean, a truly loved lens. And I think what's gonna happen is people are gonna slowly figure out this lens. I'm gonna digress for another minute. If you've never been to fredmiranda.com, it's a great site for buying gear, but it's also, I think, a great site for feedback or understanding if you kind of want advice or to understand maybe lenses or gear or whatever. I think you've got a pretty good group of photographers that leverage that site and participate in that site. And I found it really interesting. I was doing some research on the Nikon Z 40.2, and I found a post on Fred Miranda, and I expected them to just rail this lens. Absolutely rail it. The 50 1.8 kicks its ass, wipes the floor with it, tossed this guy out the window, but it was the opposite. I read several comments that said exactly what I did, and it was that, hey, I love the little 42, it's got a ton of character, it's not great wide open, but damn, it kicks in at f4 and just rocks and rolls, especially in casual settings. In fact, several people said, I like it so much, and my 50 1.8 is bigger, bulkier, and isn't that much better, so the 50 stays at home. Several people said they sold their 50 1.8 and kept the little 40. You can buy 2 or 3 of these for the price of the 50 1.8. It's exactly what I did. I didn't see the benefit. Again, if I needed portraits, maybe I'll go rent a lens, but for the most of the time, I don't need portrait type lenses. I need casual, family, travel lenses. Anyway, I thought that was interesting that I consider myself a very casual photographer, and I know there are people there that get paid, and I was shocked at the love for the 40 f2. In fact, I don't know how you measure this, but many said that the 50 1.8 was very clinical, super sharp, razor sharp, all the right specs, whereas, the 40 kind of was just character. The character versus clinical. What do you choose? I guess it depends on what you're doing. So, what else do I want to cover with the 40 f2? I will answer any questions you have in the comments. The AF, very good on this. I've been using it on the ZF. I have no issues with eye detect. I have no issues with pet eye detect, all that fun stuff. I sold this lens. I bought this for the first time with the Z6 II, sold it, and I wrote it off completely. I think I came home, shot it at like f2 2.8, compared it to the Fuji, and I was like, this is trash, toss it. But it's a great lens. If it's what you're looking for, non-portrait, travel, walk around, casual family, it's an amazing lens. I think what's really fun with this lens is there is a profile on the Nikon bodies, most of the Nikon Z bodies. It's called Dream. I love that profile. I probably said it in my last video. I love the Dream profile. So you can either use that profile. Another fun thing with this lens is to put a Pro Mist filter on it, like a quarter Pro Mist diffusion lens filter on it. Take it out at night and let it just more character. So anyway, I think that's all I have. I have been asked, I'll say this real quick. I have been asked, where do you edit your photos? Like, how do you get them off of your, do you transfer from your camera to your, your phone? Like, how do you do that? I can't express how much I love these things. This one's the USB-C for the new iPhone, which is recording this video. I think the iPhone did a great job on that last video. So it's being put back to work. I literally take the camera, open it up, pull the card, get it in the right side, and I plug it in right there. I plug it in right there. And then you open Lightroom, you open your Photos app. Some photo apps like Pixelmator or whatever, I think some of them let you import via this card, some don't. You can open your Files app, but I mean, this is it. I carry this around. I do not transfer from my camera to my phone or camera to computer via any app, SnapBridge, whatever. And the reason I say that is you usually cannot do RAW, or you often cannot do RAW. And with Fuji, if you don't change a certain setting, it will limit the file size to like 3 megabytes, 6 megabytes. So if you have a new Fuji camera and you're using the app to transfer your photos and you're wondering why the hell they're not 20 megabytes or 80 megabytes if they're an XT5, check that setting. But to hell with that setting, use this. Buy one of these, buy 2 of these. I keep an extra. So I think that's it. Hopefully this helps. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. Happy to answer anything I can, and I will leave those test charts right after this. Take care.